Hello, everyone. This is Dianne Devitt with the continuing series of This is a Stick-Up, interviewing today with Steve Fader. Steve's been with us twice. In both sessions, we learned, one, about his involvement and how he organically became involved in the political world as well as the event world. In our last session, we spoke about Steve's involvement in politics, working on different campaigns, and also being involved in the White House advance team, which I found extremely fascinating, Steve. But there's more. And before we go into Steve's telling us the story of how he created CheckIn Tech, of which he is the owner and founder, I learned something that you were involved with City Council.
Yeah.
So can you start with that and then figure out how we're going to jump into
crazy
that?
Crazy arc. So, I left politics and I decided after working in a couple campaigns, including for John Kerry's presidential, which didn't work out, I decided I was going to go to business school. And so I started applying. And in the middle, I literally walked out of the GMATs. I just taken, you have to turn your cell phone off. Right. So I turn on my phone and the phone starts ringing. Immediately, I think it's my mother, right? Calling to find out how I did.
Of course.
And I turned it on, and it actually was a person I used to work with at the Hillary campaign who had asked me if I was interested in a job at the city council, running the advance operation for the second most powerful person in the city council is the speaker of the city council.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
And so I thought about it, and I wasn't too interested, but they sat me down and they said, what is causing you such concern? And I basically said, well, I'm going to go to business school. I can go at night. And they said, fine, you can go at night. We'll work it out with your schedule. I said, I still do work for the Clinton Foundation and I want to still travel for them. They said, no problem. So sign on the dotted line. So I did. And I only thought it was a one-year gig, but I'd spent 10 years at the city council.
Wow.
And while I was there, I was going to school at night. And from there, my last class was the capstone project for business school. And my company is the capstone project for it.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. So when did this epiphany come? How did it come and when did it come?
So the professor comes in and says, here are the prerequisites. Figure out a solution to a problem in a niche industry that you're familiar with. And all of us are burned out in this class at this point. It's our last class, right? We know it's last.
Right.
I don't know what I'm going to do. Everybody around the class is like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I was like, I have no idea. I really don't. And then I went to an event a week later, still thinking about it. And it was our typical event you find in the city. It was a fundraiser. It was a 1,000-person event. And I was greeted with now we don't see this as much due to technology that we provide, but there were these stacks of lists and Excel documents that were printed.
Of course.
And I checked in, no problem. A person found me. To my left was a congressman who I'm not going to name, a pretty well-known person, and you can't miss him. And he gave the name, and the poor person did not know who he was. Their name was spelled wrong on the list. And they went through the invited by list, the last name list, the first name list, the table number list, couldn't find him. And at that point, his wife walks up. She's running late, I guess, and she walks up and she goes, what's wrong? And he goes, there's something wrong with the list. They can't find me. She pulls out an iPad and pulls up an email and shows it to this poor girl who's now checking this guy in and now realizes she's made a major mistake. And at that same time, the person who's running registration is literally running down the hallway.
Right.
And I swear they were like 4-inch heels. I thought she was going to break her ankle because she knew what was going on and she was trying to get there.
Of course.
And she went up and said, and I'm thinking of jumping in. I'm thinking about like, hey, this guy's a congressman, let him in.
And
but it's none of my business, right? And so she walks up and she says, Congressman, I'm so sorry. We'll get you in right now. And it turned out he was speaking at the event. It was a nightmare, right?
Nightmare.
And then right there, I was like, dang, this is my idea. So from there, I created an idea for software and services with regards to guest check-in. And after I left school, I started pursuing it.
The universe showed you that.
Yeah.
So can you just tell everyone what is CheckIn Tech?
Sure. So what
www.checkintech.com.
Yes. Thank you for the plug.
All right.
So what we do is we provide iPads with state-of-the-art software. We provide a manager on site at every one of the events. And basically what that does is it eliminates the lines and eliminates the as an event planner, the probably most stressful time for an event planner, no matter how long you've been planning an event, is the hour before the doors open.
No question.
And so if you don't have to focus on the door that much, and you can focus on other aspects of your event to make the guests have a better experience, that's great. And that's what we do. We provide that first impression for the event. Now, when I first started the company, no one wanted to try new technology. They were very scared, right? Everybody was so comfortable with their systems in place that they've been doing for a long time. But it's inefficient, right? On paper, you can't add names. You can write it in, but if you have 10 copies of the same list, copy 1 may have the name on it, but copy 9 or 10 may not, unless you had typed it in before.
You forget this is how I grew up in this.
I know.
And we would have 10 copies, but then the standard operating procedure was then we all, at the end of the night, when everyone's gone to bed, 10 people circle around, and we each go through our list so that there's always one master.
Right.
That is the rule of thumb. That's your and even with regard to how much technology is advanced, we always have to have that backup.
Sure.
Because you speak about Clinton Global Initiative, which I worked on in registration before you were in your school.
Right.
All right. And they insisted on using this new software. I don't know what it was. I insisted. I said, fine.
Right.
But I want a hard copy. And thank goodness we had the hard copy, because the technology wasn't sophisticated enough to keep up.
So let me ask you this question. So back in the day when you do this, because I know this, but I'll throw it out. If you've now printed your lists in all the different ways, first name, last name,
alpha company,
all
state,
that.
country,
now you've
whatever.
made all of your copies of 1,000 people coming. So let's say you have 10 copies of each of those different things. And 30 minutes before you get a phone call and you need to add 10 names to the list. How would you do it?
I literally had one person in charge of registration who went to every single person.
Got it.
With a printout of the 10 names as an addendum.
So you would either do it that way,
It's all
or
communication.
Some people would even make an overlay, right? So you would put in the mass list, and then you would tell everybody if they can't find it in the
whatever
first
way,
group,
whatever.
you would do an overlay, or you'd write it in.
Whatever.
Well, this is what I had to deal with as well. But you would always, like if it was a VVIP, you would, as the event planner, be thinking, I actually will just stand there and I'll just wait for them to arrive. And
Ask me someday to tell you my Desmond Tutu story.
Okay.
That was my 4-inch heel moment.
Got it.
But anyway, just getting back to this.
So what the technology does is it allows you to add or edit on any of the iPads, and it will sync across the board anywhere in the world.
Right.
We had a client once who added a name on Bondi Beach in Australia for an event that was starting in 5 minutes in New York. And no one knew any different.
Isn't that
the person got it. It's amazing. And when you talk about getting the assessment of all the people who've come in, our technology runs a real-time list of everybody who's walking into the event.
What is the largest? What is the smallest?
Sure.
What is your challenge? What is your those are my questions.
Especially when we first started out, the challenge was getting people comfortable with the technology. We still had clients who would bring the paper list, and a lot of them still do, but they leave it under the table. When we started out, they wanted to use the paper list with our technology, which basically it won't give us real-time information.
Right.
And there was just a matter of trust. I had to hold a lot of people's hands and say, trust me. Been doing this for a long time. You know me. I'm not gonna ruin your event.
I know, but we know that when you check someone in there, they're going to go to a table to sit down, and if they don't get that, we all know what the crisis management is, and to your point there is getting people used to not looking for alphabet letters, where to check in.
We get rid of that.
I understand that, and as an event producer, what I still like to do is have an area for check-in.
Sure.
I've seen, and I tell you that, Steve, because I've seen people use things where they arbitrarily stick people, which is maybe convenient, but it's very disoriented for some people.
Yes.
So I wanted to just
So some of the things that we suggest, and you had asked the size of our event.
the size
Typically, our events run from, we'll do events starting at around 200 people, and our largest event is a 5,000 person fundraiser that takes place here in New York. It's pretty well known, but I'm not going to name it.
Right.
And it took us 3 years to get. But as far as the way the check-in, and the reason why we suggest to remove alpha order is also a very inefficient way of checking people in, A through F and that sort of thing.
Right.
But we definitely agree that there should be a check-in area, and there should be a process where either people are standing. We have a greeter. That's one of the things that I demanded with our clients.
Very
that our
important.
manager,
First impression.
Yeah, absolutely. Our manager will greet, and send folks to the next available person. When we first started out, people were still looking for the 8-foot table.
Correct.
And they couldn't find it because at certain events, and we still use them,
Right.
but at certain events, we would just have people standing with iPads. So they didn't know where to go.
Right.
And so we had to train, we've been training our guests for a long time to look for one way of things, and now they've learned over time to look for folks with iPads. So our manager would greet, and the other thing we found was that people who were walking up were on their phone, or they were having conversation.
Correct.
So having somebody who's looking at the phone and like, welcome, oh, yes, yes. Your next check-in person's right over here.
Correct.
And by doing that, we've been able to eliminate a lot of the lines. We could check people, and we've timed it now. We check people in every 3 seconds. And so for an event, we did an event a few years ago where we really timed it, where we had a line out the door before the doors opened.
Right.
The doors opened, there was about 1,000 people. We checked in people, we checked 10 people we checked in 100 people every 10 minutes, which is super fast, which creates a great guest experience because no one's waiting online, and they're happy, and they get through it really quickly. What we have found now, where we're at, now we've been in business for 8 years. We've done over 3,500 events worldwide.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's great.
That's huge.
And we do about 500 events a year now. And what we have found is that it's shifted a little bit. People are now accustomed to the technology.
Right.
Now it's more about a smile and meeting those guests at eye level. So we were talking about 8-foot tables. If a client needs a table, we suggest to bring it at standing, at a high top
table, right.
And now you're meeting your guests at eye level.
Right.
Welcome to the event. What's your name? Great. Check you in. Go right in. It's a quick process, but you're that first impression for the entire event.
Well, you know what, Steve? And the first impression, by the way, is the one that lasts the longest. So I would say that you were a disruptor.
Well,
you get that metal badge. You're a disruptor. You created a product, joined the revolution with it, of shifting the mentality of what it has to be.
Yeah.
And the old way worked as it worked, and now the new way works as it works. So it's just a matter of keeping up with the times. So I'm so excited about that, having been to both and having been the one to type the badges, and I know that all comes and stuff. But just as a closing, all right, you've shared so much just by who you are and the way that I told you as the first thing that you always said yes to opportunities.
Yes. I said yes to this, right?
But you said yes. You said yes to this because saying yes opens doors, doesn't it?
Never turn down a meeting is one of the other things I always say, right? So even to this day, we'll have a client will call and say, hey, or somebody who's a potential client, and I'm like, I don't know if they're going to really want to use our services, or they may not be the right fit. And I'll sit down with them, and I take the meeting, and it's a great thing. So never turn down a meeting.
I think the world is waiting for the next Steve epiphany. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with?
I think with technology, as we talked earlier, it's important to still have the basic skills, right? Where without your phone, without anything, you just make it happen. Use your both hands, which is one of the things I tell my staff, is that they should have both hands free at all times, not have something in their hands. We have iPads. We have staff who just do check-in, but our manager does not have an iPad in their hands. They're both hands are free to do whatever they need. I think technology is moving very fast in the event industry. There's a lot of players out there, so you have to be careful. And then the cool thing, I ask all the time, what's like the next thing that's coming down the road? And I know we've talked about this in your class. The cool thing that I'm like geeking out about, besides drones, which is totally separate conversation. But the thing that people are doing now is that you can have the next level of Bluetooth, which is already out, but a lot of phones don't have it yet. But the next few years, they're going to have the next level of Bluetooth, which I can't remember the name of it. What happens is you'll turn that on, and your information will already be stored in your phone.
Yes, I saw that.
And we're working on our software side of things, my business partners, where as you're approaching, so if you're walking up to an event and you're approaching someone, your phone will send the signal automatically to our iPads. Your photo will come up. It will cross-reference the guest list and check them off. And then you'll just say, welcome, Diane. You don't even have to give your name. You'll say, welcome, Diane. Welcome to the event. And you'll go right in. So that's the next step. That's the future. And that's like a couple of years away.
That's a couple of years away. I know it's kind of been sprinkling like twinkle dust, but the technology is catching up with it. But thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
But everyone, just to wrap up with today, there isn't anything to substitute the importance of face-to-face. And what a product like CheckIn Tech is doing is not only creating the ease of registration, but creating ambassadors to welcome that person, that when they walk into that event space, they feel wanted and welcomed, and they are on the receiving line with their smiles and setting the tone for the whole thing.
Absolutely.
So thank you for recognizing that.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into this very exciting interview with Steve Fader, owner and creator of CheckIn Tech, Mr. Politics, world-renowned event leader. Thank you very much. Until the next time, this is Dianne Devitt. Thank you.